Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back. Today, we're going to go straight into the sacred fire of love, heartbreak, and awakening. If you've ever felt like your deepest relationships were sometimes your most painful initiations, I know I've had many. Or maybe you've been the guide, the healer, or perhaps the one who feels like you're always holding the space. Or maybe you're still just energetically tied to someone who never really saw your worth. And ultimately, the truth is that you're not alone. So today's questions that were submitted, I think, are really going to help us talk about that spiritual side of love, the kind that nobody really prepares us for. We have to learn from and finally call our power home. So we'll uncover how relationships can both be that medicine and that mirror, and what to do when they start to challenge, our self-worth, our intuition, and sometimes even our mission. So I would love to know, before we get started, what is your state of heart right now, today? How are you feeling? Is your heart purple? Is it on fire? Is it broken? Is it healing? Is it whole? So I'd love to hear in the comments, put a little color and perhaps what that color means for you. I would love to know. And also, if you haven't already taken the State of the Heart assessment, that's also a great thing to do. You can go on to bethbell.me. We'll find out if your heart is blocked, healing, whole, or blocked, broken, healing, or whole. And you'll get some tips, tools, and techniques in the 5 steps to heal your heart back to wholeness, because we never know who's going to break our heart, do we? It could be family, friends. Romantic relationships are always good ones for this. So please put in the comments, even if you're watching on replay. And if you have a question during the live show, I always love for you to put them in the comments. Don't wait. You can put it in there, even if it feels like it's a little bit off from the topic, or maybe the topic is spurring something on for you. Or maybe you're like, yeah, I just know someone that has a question that this would, if I ask this, it would really help them. Because remember that your question is also going to be many other people's questions. And so that's how this works. It's beautiful. So much comes through and it means so much for so many people. So yay, I see a red hot heart, I think, coming through on the live. All right, so let's jump in. And again, if you're on replay, you can still put your questions in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. All right, so we're all about love and power and awakening and untangling those soul lessons. And so we're going to jump into the first question. How do I stop giving my power away in relationships that feel fated or karmic? I think let's just take those two terms and let's talk about fated relationships. I often think of them as more like destiny, like this is our destiny to have met someone, and there's a real connection, and they mean something to us. They can be fleeting. It can be that they come in and they have a huge impact and then they leave quickly, or it could be that they stay for a long period of time. Now, karmic often means that there's a real soul entanglement, which requires typically multiple lifetimes to have been in this karma with them. It could be in one lifetime, but I think typically it's that you've had something that's happened with them. Or if you're really with me on this and really in an expanded state of consciousness, it could be that you're also on a multi-dimensional relationship with them. So there's lots of different ways that I think karma can come back around. Now, I'm going to answer the question, but I don't want to forget, because there's something else coming through about karma that I want to talk about. So those two, I think, really work in tandem a lot of times, that our destiny is, okay, I've met someone and boom, I'm in this with them. And I know that they're in my life for a reason. And oftentimes then it's the karma that we're working out, because we're either bonding on a big wound from this lifetime, or we're bonding on a wound that we perhaps created together in a previous lifetime, a relationship that we had that is up for healing, up for wholeness, up for releasing from our systems. It could be a belief that we've held. It could be really that inner power and wisdom and knowledge that we're scared to tap into. I know that's always a hard one for all of us, because we're like, no, I'm ready. I'm good. Like, I'm here. I'm present. I want to serve. And yet there's things that you find are holding you back. And oftentimes those are mysterious things. And that's where our beautiful challenging, sometimes painful karmic relationships come in. And a lot of times, as you know, they start out beautiful and blissful and like a honeymoon. And then the karma really starts to come out. And then we start to realize, ooh, okay, there's something more here. And if we don't get the lesson with that particular person that we're fated to meet, we'll get the lesson with our next relationship that comes along. So it's really important to take these relationships. The word serious comes forward, but I actually don't really like the word serious. I think what I mean is that it's something to really take note of, to not brush them aside, to not feel into what it is that this person is asking us to shift within ourselves, because they are the mirror for us. So, how do you stop giving your power away was the question in these types of relationships. And it really is knowing who you really are. And sometimes that can be a challenge in and of itself, because you think you know who you are, but until you've really come to that place of deep, soulful self-love embodiment, where you're not looking for the external environment to give you praise. And I don't mean like that you have to have recognition. I mean that you get that mirror from the external world. When we start to let that illusion shatter, and we don't need this reassurance from the external world, and we don't need this reassurance from loved ones, especially our romantic relationships, that's where we start to anchor in. That's where we start to bring like true source in and anchor it in to our hearts and our minds and our bodies in a way that we can start shining our light out there without attachment, without expectation, without needing a reward, without needing a response. That's often the problem, right? Is that we get all these responses, and yes, we can have an emotion, a feeling, a reaction, but it's what we do with that reaction that really is the ascension journey. It's how we allow ourselves to feel it, let it flow through, and let it go. And when we let it go, we truly let it go. That means that we've healed ourselves, our hearts back to that wholeness. And then we don't need to attract another person to bring forward a very similar lesson. So sometimes, we all know, we see the patterns, right? We have patterns in our relationships. And so we want to break those patterns. We want to really be in our highest self. And so we have to thank these beautiful karmic, fated, destined relationships, even when they're painful. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. I always love comments if this is helpful for you as well. Okay, let's jump into the next one. What's the difference between a trauma bond and a soul connection? Let's talk about trauma bonds. I think there's a couple of different ways that people often look at trauma bonds. One is, and a lot of people think, okay, well, but we have trauma from our past and we're bonding on that. And that can be the case. Like maybe you've had childhood sexual abuse, or maybe you've had something that really brings you together and you bond over talking about this trauma and about trying to help each other heal the trauma. So that can be one form of a trauma bond. Another form of a trauma bond is when you don't necessarily have that previous trauma already innately within you, but that one partner is actually projecting something onto the other partner that creates trauma, that creates fear, that creates a very volatile situation and impacts the nervous system in a way that is jolting. And then that same person comes back and does something that's very loving, very kind, but it's not a repair. So it's really important that when these things happen, because we hurt people all the time in relationships, let's be honest, and not intentionally in most cases, but when we do hurt someone, when we didn't see things from their perspective, or we didn't really know, oh gosh, that was really gonna make them feel this way. And when they say, hey, you made me feel this way, then we typically repair. Oh, tell me more. Oh, let me understand how I played a role in this trauma for you. But when there's a trauma bond being formed, it's when someone's projecting onto you their own shit, their own trauma, and then they're coming back and quickly just kind of glossing over it without repair. And oh, everything's fine. And sort of that and this is such an overused term these days, but that love bombing, that adoration about how great you are, and oh wow, we made it through. But it's typically coming from one side, and they are creating the drama and the trauma and then trying to correct it with more love bombing techniques to gloss over it because they don't want to take accountability for the role that they played in how they created trauma for you. Now, you're not the victim. That's the really important part here, is that you are asking them on a soul level to play out a particular role for you and for you to have a reaction to that role. And ultimately, if it's the trauma bond in the latter, it's that you come to a place where you say, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to be part of this trauma, and I'm not going to be part of the way that you're bonding me on a nervous system level to want to be connected to you, to feel I need you. There's real hormones involved in trauma bonding. It's legit. And sometimes we don't talk about it enough, and sometimes we talk about it too much. And so I think it's really about not being the victim. Now, you had asked what's the difference between a trauma bond and a soul connection. So a soul connection, I think, goes back to that destiny that could be karmic, could be destiny, but without any karma. It could be that you're creating good karma in this lifetime, that you're creating that beautiful healing. And that soul connection is something that I see in people's soul contracts. We come into these lifetimes with contracts with other souls that are here to help us. There's a book that comes to mind that I absolutely love. It's actually a children's book. It's very easy to read. You can read it in one sitting, and you can read it to yourself as a little, nighttime, like as though you're reading to a child, but to your inner child. And it's called A Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. I'll put the link in here. If I forget, please somebody remind me after the show. But A Little Soul in the Sun is a beautiful book about how we call in other souls and we have soul contracts with them. And we ask them to play out all of these roles for us. Some of those roles, man, they are gnarly, gnarly roles, and they do not feel good. But it is all part of our soul plan. So the difference between trauma bond and soul connection is quite different, but can have overlaps because they are still soul contracts. Someone who comes in and creates trauma with us or helps us to release our trauma because we share a similar type of trauma is definitely going to be a soul connection. And again, sometimes those soul connections, they're heavy, they're with us, they stay, they stick, we're together for a long time. And sometimes they come in and they sweep out, and it's a whirlwind. And neither one of those are easy to recover from. I don't want to make it sound hard, but I'm just saying that when we really, like on a cellular level, like come together with someone and our bacteria literally starts, coming together and what's the word? Commingling. We biologically have our innately, like our somatic system starts to combine. Now, the beautiful part of this is that if it's a healthy bond, that's what's so beautiful because it's sacred. And so the sacredness of that bond is really where the work comes in, not as a judgment, not even as an evaluation, but with discernment. We have discernment that we use, like, vibrationally, where is this person at with me? Is this, what kind of a bond is this? What kind of a contract is this? Am I getting the lessons as I go through it? Is sometimes the lesson to leave. And it is oftentimes the lesson to leave. And it is oftentimes the lesson to take your power back. So there's different ways that we're going to talk about all of these topics. I think there's more questions coming that are going to get even deeper into when it's time to leave. So stay tuned. All right. Next question. Just checking here on the live. So happy to have you guys on with me. Okay. Why do I still feel deeply connected to someone I know isn't right for me? Yeah, I always like, when I hear the word right, I'm like, because it's such a judgment about right or wrong. Now, I'm picking on you a little bit with this because I don't mean to. I just mean to really call out that I think every relationship is right. It's just maybe not something you want to stay in for the long haul. So when we start to come back to that more that inner knowing of the soul contract, and when here's the real sticker that gets you to the clarity that you need. Am I doing all the work and they're not? Are they showing up to do their work? That's really the sticky part. And that's the part where you have to start using your discernment. Are you getting lip service that they are doing something to keep you, or are they doing work because they innately know that they have their own work to do and that they want to do it and they want to actually be in that place of self-realization? Because sometimes the wounds that we carry, you guys know, you've been on this journey for a while. I'm certain of it. You know that those wounds can go deep and they can go ancestral and they can go karmic and they can go so far back that it really takes a warrior to want to do this work. And not everybody's here in this lifetime to do the work. Sometimes these people are playing a role for us to show us when to stay or when to go based on, are they willing to do the work? Are we on the same page with doing the work for ourselves so that we can show up in our wholeness to be in that unconditional sharing of love with one another? Or are we trying to make something right? That's why I don't like the word, because it's not about right. It's about vibrational resonance. It's about, are we connecting? Are we in this together with a similar intention? Because the work is hard. It is hard to get to the core of some of these fear-based beliefs, these fear-based traumas. And if someone's not willing to do the work with you for themselves, that's always the point where you say, okay, it's time to move on. Thank you. Thank you for showing me where I am. Thank you for providing me the insights that I needed to know how to keep moving forward, and moving forward oftentimes without the other person. And that's a tough place to be because we love these people. All right, why do I still feel deeply connected to someone I know isn't right for me? Because you don't want to let go. Because we innately, as light workers and empaths, we don't like to let go. And most of the times it's not because we're weak. Sometimes maybe we're just wobbly and we, don't want to be alone or whatnot. But a lot of times it's not that. A lot of times it's that we just want so much for that other person to want to step through. We're like, we know the way, just follow me, follow me. And yet they're like, no, I'm not ready. And we can't force loved ones when they're not ready. If they're not ready, they're not ready. And that's the toughest part, I think, for all of us on this awakening ascension journey, is when we know that, especially when they're so close and they're like, that they want to step through, that they want to shatter that heartbreak, like that deep, deep, deep innate heartbreak that's been there for decades, if not lifetimes. I mean, ultimately, look, the reality is heartbreak. Every one of us. That's why I love heartbreak so much. I hate being in it. I really do. But I also love it because every time my heart breaks, if I let that heart break open, more light comes in. And we're all here to get back to wholeness and just to remember ourselves. Know thyself. And when we start going deeper into the work, we're going to hit that core wound of heartbreak that leads all the way back to separation. And I mean separation from source. That idea that we're not perfect and whole just as we are in who we are by ourselves. The beauty is when we can get to that core wound, which takes sometimes lifetimes, lots of tears, lots of different types of therapies and self-realization techniques that help us actually get to that place. But when we do and we start really breaking through, we just take it up to another level. But we get back to source and we get back to remembering who we really are. I'm right here close to Yogananda and the Self-Realization Fellowship, and I'm not necessarily a follower or devotee or anything like that, but he was such an incredible image and example of what it's like to step through that core wound of heartbreak, that core wound of separation, to be connected to source and to feel what it's like to embody that level of vibration where you really are unattached to your external environment and that you are part of it, but you're not reacting to it. You may have an emotion that you feel through it, but you're not attached to the you're not attached to how you flow through it. And give and receive, and that's unconditional love. It's unconditional love for yourself and it's unconditional love for others when you can really be in that place where giving and receiving is the same. All right, I know I went a little bit off here on this. Yeah, why do I still feel deeply connected to someone I know isn't right for me? So I think there's so many juicy nuggets in that you can feel deeply into it, each one of us, into whoever it is. It might be a parent, it might be a child, it might be someone that we know is not in vibrational resonance, but we just want to hang on. And so sit with it and really journal deeply with letting go and stepping into your own power, because that's what happens when we let go, is we become even more innately powerful within ourselves. And I don't mean that from the ego, I mean that from our light, I mean that from our vibrational resonance, I mean that with the impact that we can have on humanity just by literally showing up and being happy, and sometimes showing up and being sad if that's what we need to show, because it comes back to that vulnerability. Okay, let's go on to the next question. All right, you guys who are alive, you're all very quiet over there. I'm happy to hear any questions. Okay, next question. How do I know if a partner is mirroring my unhealed wounds or helping me evolve? This, I think, is a great question, and it's bumpy and it's wobbly because there are times when we need the bumps and the wobbles to get our attention. And so the mirroring is always going to be helping you with your evolution. The process of that is what's so bumpy and can be just really painful at times. Mirroring is that scary part where we're like, no, 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 that's not me. They're not mirroring me. No, that's not me. That's them. That's them. That's them. And that's the part where we have to go, okay, but what part of me is unhealed that I'm asking them to mirror that behavior, that emotion, that situation to me? Again, not from a victim place, from a, ooh, juicy, let me get the lesson. Let me get in here. Why did I just ask that person to say mean and terrible things or demeaning things to me? Why? I don't feel that I'm that. So why am I asking them to do that? And that's where the work really is diving deep into, where did you wobble? Interesting example coming through is tarot cards. So many years ago, I was so scared of tarot cards. And then I realized I had a situation in Australia where I had a tarot card reading, and I had such a profound experience. I talk about it in my book, Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics, that now I've become a big tarot card person. But the point that I'm bringing forward is that it's not about the cards. It's about, how do you feel when the cards drop, when the reader says, when the book description tells you this? Does it resonate? How does it feel within your body? And yes, there's an element of our mind that wants to jump in and say this, and that's fine too, because oftentimes what we're doing with our somatic bodies is getting our mind aligned. Aligned meaning, ooh, let go of that limiting belief. Ooh, let go of that. And we're aligning and we're coming in and we're attuning ourselves. So the mind is very important. That's why we have mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul, that it's that attunement of all three of them. But where we really want to be is to have the mind in the back seat and the soul in the driver's seat so that we can really be present with feeling our own truth, not getting caught up in the ideas of the mind and everything that wraps us up into thinking, oh, it's this, it's that, it's blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm coming back to the mirror. That's where I think it's about your reaction. So, yes, that might not be true, what they specifically mirrored to you, but it's understanding the fragment within yourself that still has a trigger. Love is the trigger because love hooks us, love brings us in. Yes, there's an element of chemistry, love, biology, procreating, keeping humanity alive, having babies. There is all of that. But love, that feeling that, oh my God, it's so great, it's so juicy, and it's so outside of myself, when it's not outside yourself. It's always in yourself. It's just that person mirroring it to you. So love is oftentimes the hook. That's what gets us in, makes us put our guard down, gets us vulnerable, and boom, then the mirror shows up. Not just the light mirror, but the shadow side. And that's where the juiciest work begins, is when our loved ones show us that darker side of ourselves and that darker side of themselves, so we can experience our own experience of what that means for us. And what does that mean to our evolution? And what does that mean? Not from judgment, just from observation, from wanting to evolve, wanting to expand, wanting to grow, wanting to be even more unconditional in our giving and receiving. Because when we start to feel vulnerable, we have an option to either be vulnerable in a way we open and we blossom, or sometimes we call in people that help just close us and we go right into contraction, right into heartbreak, right into this hurts, right into I'm not doing this again, right into I hate you, right into I can't believe you did that to me. So when we get into those vulnerable places, it's can we anchor in to the vulnerability of it and still allow ourselves to blossom with discernment. It doesn't mean we stay if someone is, really stepping on us. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it's can we stay in the pain so that we can release it as opposed to contract in it. There's a big difference there. And vulnerability can do both things, can make us go both ways. But vulnerability is the most beautiful thing that we can encounter, because it's what creates connection. It's what makes us real. It's what makes us human. That's why we came here, is to have these vulnerable moments and to see, how do we react to them? What happens? What are we going to do about it? All right. Let's see. Did I answer the question? Sometimes I go off. How do I know if a partner is mirroring my unhealed wounds or helping me evolve? Yes. So you're always evolving. It's just a matter of how much you want to get out of that lesson, or do you want to call someone else in to help you learn the same darn thing? We all do it. Don't worry. Okay. Let's jump into the next question. Can I outgrow someone spiritually and still love them? What do I do with that love? Yeah, of course. We outgrow people all the time. We outgrow friends. We outgrow our families, but we can't necessarily release them. We can in our minds and in our hearts. We can find a place that we can release in a good, positive way. And that's what I feel for this question as well, is that sometimes people get us to a certain place, or they get us to a certain place, and it's time for them to move on. And we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that partner to want to move on. And so having that love is a really soft balance of remembering the beautiful love that you shared, but also remembering the discord, not from a blame, not from a shame, just from a, huh, yeah, our discord in our vibrational harmony is not there. And because of that, we're triggering each other somewhat unnecessarily, because at some point you do sort of get to that place where you're like, okay, I get it. Like, we have these triggers for each other, but now we're not growing from them anymore. We're just torturing each other. And so that's a place where you go back to the love, and you just go back to the thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you've given me, all that you have helped me evolve to, and all that I will continue to evolve to, because we close our sacred contract and we choose to have a loving, conscious uncoupling. And sometimes that's really hard. And sometimes that takes time. It doesn't always happen like lickety split. I know, I wish it did, but it doesn't, because it's part of the process. It's part of us, yeah, putting our heart back together in a soft way, not in that contracted way, not in that like, I'll get you. I'll just go out and meet somebody else, or I'll do whatever. I don't know, whatever people do. So, yes, I think that loving someone after you split is the most important thing you can do, because you really are taking how you uncouple. And it doesn't mean that it always is pretty, but how you being responsible for you, how you take your reactions, your love, your light, your lessons, how good you were. And I'm sorry, I don't like the word good, but how intent you were on learning those lessons, and leading with love is going to be the sounding board of which you go into the next relationship. And if you don't spend the time to heal and to have that tender space and that place within you to really feel the disappointment, to feel the loss of a fantasy, of a dream, of something that was so beautiful. If you don't take the time to feel, then you're not going to quite get there in the next one. You're just going to attract someone who's going to help you with that same darn lesson. And aren't we so tired of the patterns? Aren't we tired of experiencing the same thing with the next person that has a different, maybe a different package, but it's the same bow, and it always comes out the same in the end? Yeah, I know. A lot of people think, oh, it's the start of the relationship, I got to do that differently. It's like, well, yeah, you can, but it's also, you got to do the end of the last one differently. Because if you don't, you close. If you don't get the lessons. So yes, I hope that when you outgrow someone spiritually, or they outgrow you, that you can still love them, that you can still find that beautiful, juicy, juicy place, because that's what's going to catapult the next relationship when it's time. And don't push it before it's time, because it takes time. It takes time to heal. All right, let's go into the next question. What if I've been the healer or teacher in all my relationships? How do I attract an equal? Yeah, I think for a lot of individuals on this awakening healing journey, in the beginning, like phase 1, we wake up, something wakes us up, and we're like, oh my God, there is something so much more here. Like yeah, and you become hungry. And for me, when it happened for me back in 2005, my soul was just quickening. I mean, I was reading everything from quantum physics to conscious breath work to, I mean, you name it, like I had it. And I always felt I was like spiritual, but I was not focused on my ascension journey as like my top priority in life. Knowing who I really was, anchoring in love, all of that was not my main focus prior to this awakening moment. Many of you have heard about the awakening moment, the awakening kiss at 30,000 feet. It's not probably what you think, but you can read all about it again in my book, Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics. It was a very profound moment that had an external story around it, but it was a very internal thing. It was a very soulful opportunity that I wanted to understand more about who I am and how we feel love within ourselves and how we share it with others and when we don't share it with others. So I know I'm going a little off into this other space, but my point is that when we first awaken and then we get hungry, I would say phase 2 is just like hungry, 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 reading, reading, reading. And then we go, oh my God, everybody else should know. How? I remember thinking, this was years ago, I'm like, how is it possible that it's not all over the news and all over in the media, about how science and the knowingness of God, and I don't mean the religious God. Like, why isn't this all over the news? Like, oh my gosh, there's proof of God, there's proof of this. And I was just like, am I the only person waking up? Well, no, of course not. Like for centuries and centuries and centuries, people have been waking up. I mean, Jesus, I don't know how long it's been since Jesus, roamed the earth, apparently. So people have been waking up for a long time. It's just that it's still sort of undercover. And that's the interesting thing about the awakening journey, is that we want to go out and we want to just like wake everybody up. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that not everybody's ready to wake up, because people have been doing this for, hundreds of thousands of years, and we're not all woke up. Now, with that said, I think we're at a precipice. I think we're at this really incredible time that more and more people are ready to wake up. But here's the thing, is that you are not here. And I know I'm telling you something you already know, but I'm just reiterating it because we all fall into this trap. You are not here to heal anyone. You're only here to heal yourself back to wholeness. And as my spiritual healer always told me, Beth, we're only here to be the happiest motherfuckers on earth. And it seems so basic, so simple, but it is so true. So stop being the healer. Stop being the teacher. I know that might put some of you like, what? That's what I do. Be the lighthouse. And when we go even deeper into this, we have to stop being the spotlight. And I don't mean that we want to be in the spotlight. I mean shining the spotlight on others' darkness when they're not ready. We need to be the lighthouse and to shine the light out and say, I'll show you the way. I will show you the way. I will not give you the way, but I'll show you the way. And you can choose the way you want to go. So we have to move away from this healer, teacher. Yes, we're guides. We're like the people holding the little flags on the tours. Like, follow me. And people, they can choose to not stay on the tour. They can be renegades and go off. Yeah, of course. All right, we've got some questions coming in. I'm going to see if it's related to this or if it's a new question. In this digital age, how do we support the younger generation on what love means when I don't want what it means to be left unopened, or someone screenshotted something? Okay, let me read that again. And now I got my glasses on. In this digital age, how do we support the younger generation on what love means when I don't what it means to be left unopened, or someone? I feel like there's a little typo there. If you can help me out slightly, but I'm gonna start with the first part of it. How do we support the younger generation in the digital age and what love means? Again, I feel like it's tied right in. Be the lighthouse, and the lighthouse means that as a parent, and I know that you do this yourself, as a parent, that when you speak to your child, you make eye contact and you request that of them. And when you have communications with them, you ask for them to speak in full sentences, to articulate their feelings. And you may even want to have time that's like debrief screen time, where you say, look, I can't control, because a lot of times, if they're small, you can control. But if they're teenagers, it's almost impossible to control screen time. Although there are settings, in the iPhones, and you can technically. I think debriefing from screen time, like taking the time to say, "Hey, let's talk about what you learned today. Let's talk about where you spent your time today." And encourage them to find channels, to find people that they watch. Like, "Hey, show me like who's your favorite person today? Who are you watching the most?" And just having that engaging conversation, because if they're watching a person that's like of super low vibration and just like really not where you feel is a good vibrational resonance for them, then instead of saying, and I know you don't do this, but instead of saying you can't watch that person or you can't tune into that channel, you ask them like, what are you really getting from that, and how are you really feeling when you're doing that? Now, it's also about friends, right? It's like, I don't know, Snap, what is it called? Where you're going back and forth and you're creating dialogue, just encouraging them, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you use more FaceTime? Why don't you just get the person on the line and actually do the best you can to have that connection, that personal connection?" I know in some cases it's not cool, but if as a mother, you can, or a father, you can help them feel the experience of being present, eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul, then they start to learn that versus learn the screen time. Now, what comes forward is to share. I do something called fireside chat. I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for all the beautiful souls that show up for it, because it's a one conversation. It's not a happy hour. It's not. It's a conscious conversation where we talk and roundtable about a topic. And I felt really blessed over the last couple of weeks because more and more people are coming and more people are telling other people. And it's just for me, and it's in my house and it's small and it's, but people are saying, "Oh, I just love doing the fireside chat because it's an opportunity to just really connect. We're not in a restaurant. We're not trying to fight with noise. We're just listening to each other's hearts and we're listening what's on our minds." And so maybe as a family, even if you only have one child, maybe you do a little fireside chat. Make it fun. We roast marshmallows. I think everybody that comes to my fireside chat is probably like anti-sugar in a good way. But we just decided we're going to channel our inner child and we're going to roast marshmallows, eat gummy bears. We had some beautiful gummy bears that got brought from Germany last week. But yeah, so it's not like all about junk food, but I'm just saying that we really anchor into hearing and listening, and yeah, another thing comes forward. Something that I recall from my spiritual healer telling me that he used to work with kids that were, I don't think they were in jail, but they were like in reformative places. And he would go out and play basketball with them. And that was the way that he could connect with them. And he would get into a deep conversation and they would actually share things because they didn't have to make eye contact. So if you're in that situation where someone's really not been taught, now I know I'm taking a little bit off of like the parent, but where you're encountering someone, a child, a person that can't make the eye contact, find an activity where you don't have to have the eye contact, but that eventually you sort of have that goal of, let's get to the eye contact. Let's take it off the court and maybe onto the bench so that you can have those moments. And the other thing that's coming forward is touch. I know teenagers don't like to be touched. Well, not always, but I'm just saying, like, they really start to get into that independence and they're not really interested. But if you can make gestures and things that connect you energetically, vibrationally to children, even if they're not yours, but you know them enough to know that it's appropriate, right? So let's just be sensitive about that. That energy, that eye contact. As adults, we're not great at eye contact oftentimes. Not everyone, but I know this to be true from some other activities that I do here in the community. And it takes a while for people to feel comfortable of like walking around and looking at strangers within a closed container that's safe. So if we don't have that level of confidence to have that eye contact, that eye gazing connection in a closed, safe container, we know it's not happening out in the real world. And for some good reasons, sometimes it's not something we can do. But with our loved ones, especially our lovers, that eye contact, that connection, it's just so important. It's so important for people to see and feel that they're seen, that they're heard, that their opinions, their ideas, their thoughts are valued by you. It doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you're saying, "Oh yeah, I agree with everything you're saying." It doesn't mean that you're saying, "You're right." It doesn't mean that. It's like, "Oh, thank you for sharing that perspective." So I think that we can leverage a lot of this with our children, but also just with everyone else, because ultimately we are speaking to adults, but we're speaking to their inner child. We're speaking to all the programs, all the things that came through for us to work out so that we can get back to know thyself, that we can get back to remembering who we really are deeply within, innately within. All right, thanks for that live question there. I appreciate that. Okay, let's jump into one more question here. Why do I feel guilty for wanting more than someone can give me emotionally or spiritually? Well, stop that. Stop it. Bob Newhart has this really great video on YouTube. Stop it. And you can look it up. It's great. It's just your mind. I think feel into why are you calling in the need to feel guilty? I get it. I get it. I get it. But that again is a vibrational mismatch in a sense where if someone is needing something more from you, what is it about you? You can say, "Oh yeah, they're just needy," but that's really not the lesson for you. It's why am I calling in someone that needs me? Why do I feel like I need someone to need me? Why do I need someone to adore me? I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that there's a lesson in there that when we get to that place within ourselves where we don't need that from someone else, that's where like real, true, unconditional love can come through ourselves and to another. And in a very reciprocal sense, in a very beautiful way, that we can just loop that unconditional love without feeling like we need to be needed. And that's just part of that's just being human. I mean, really, it is. But I'm saying that if we want to ascend and we want to expand, that we want to start releasing some of those older patterns and programs about needing to be adored, about needing to be, yeah, seen. We will be seen. We are seen. And when we don't have the attachment to how we're seen, it loosens everything for both people, for all people involved in the situation. We just can start to surrender into the moment, surrender into the relationship, surrender into the connection. And the mind starts to quiet and we start to feel a different level of connection with ourself showing up for someone else. And that's really where it gets beautiful. And sometimes it's a really tough place for all of us to be, especially when things are wobbly. So let's just anchor in that deep love that we innately have within ourselves, even if we don't feel it right now or we don't know it right now. We know that we should know it, but we aren't feeling it for ourselves right now. Let's just take it in and just breathe it in and look to the light, even if you're sitting in the dark right now, like physically sitting in the dark, which I'm sure none of you are. But if you are, you can still see the light. You can still envision the light. And so I think that's a good place to really close this in on, that the light is always within us and we can always see it even in the darkness. It's just a matter of choice. We want to ask, receive, and surrender into feeling our own love and reduce the storylines of everything else happening in the external world. All right. I so love every week when you're with me here live on replay. Please, if anything today has felt inspiring to you, if you haven't already subscribed or hit the bell, the like button, I would love it. And I'd love to see you here again next week. Don't miss out on the State of the Heart assessment on bethbell.me. And if you want to go deeper with something that's heavy on your heart or something you want to unravel in your mind, you can always schedule a one-on-one with me. I do short 30-minute questions and also all the way up to VIP intuitive soul advising for a monthly basis. So please stay tuned. I look forward to seeing you, and thank you, Heart Traveler, for the gratitude and the hearts. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. And until then, wishing you much bliss and love on the journey. Namaste.